So I says to the guy,
What
what
what do
are
you
you
what do you
doing?
says to?
I says, what are you doing? What are you doing?
You give him the gabagool.
Yeah, I'm going to fit
Look,
him for
I
some
says
concrete
I
shoes.
don't care who you sleep with, as long as it's the fishes.
Exactly. I'm going to fit you with some concrete shoes.
Orthopedic.
Hey,
Orthopedic
I'm
concrete
mobbing
shoes.
over
Absolutely.
here.
Yeah. I'm going to
Uh,
make you take a long walk off a short pier
uh,
while we're doing this. So,
my
yeah,
dad said that so often. The long walk, short pier, all the gosh dang time. Anyway,
Does
it's a
that mean it's
great
been
thing to say. It's a
does that
it's a
mean it's
great
been
thing
fun
to say.
phrase.
does that mean it's been peer reviewed?
I am teleporting to the ski chalet.
You
Matt
just see
is no
someone just
longer with us.
Indiana Jones rope in through the window.
He's faced an unfortunate. Matt has faced an unfortunate accident.
He
He's
totally was not
sleeping with the
squatting.
fishes.
He's with the fishes wearing
With
some
some new concrete shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
He's in a better place, specifically the bottom of the reservoir.
He's never got to worry about hydration again.
Exactly. And he's got plenty of food around him too with the fish.
Oh my
So it's all
god.
good.
Anyway,
We're back. It's Saturday night. I think we were live Saturday night last week. God, it's been a week. It's been a week, my friends.
oh my gosh. June has been a month.
It has. Hey, Bren, what's going on, man? Welcome to the show. Yeah, so tonight we're going to goof off. We're gonna, as usual, but tonight we're gonna celebrate. I like to call this the little show that could with the Acolyte.
Yeah.
This show, and we've talked about this before, and I have had my criticisms with the show, but for the most part, I really enjoyed this show. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was really well done, and it's some of the best Star Wars we've gotten in a very long time.
Yeah. It's everything that a Star Wars story should be.
I
Mhm.
agree.
It's got something it wanted to say. It has like a idea that it wanted to explore.
Hmm.
It's clearly made from a place of love, not just for
Hmm.
Star Wars, but for the stories that inspired Star
Hmm.
Wars.
100%.
And it has
Hey,
spawned
Katrina.
some banger spin-off publishing stories.
It has. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse. Hey. Um, no, it really has,
Yeah.
and it's one of these. I just feel like Leah, you and I talk about as High Republic fans. We talk about how this show hit at the right time, just like how the High Republic hit at the right time with Light of the Jedi hitting in January of 21.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It told like it it had something to say. Like
Yeah.
people continue to argue online, like, was it pro Jedi? Was it anti Jedi? I don't think it was either. I think it was something that we who are High Republic publishing fans have gotten a
Yeah.
lot of, especially in phase 2, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but something that I think is important to see, which is um, it's part of the story of how the Jedi got to where we see them in the prequels, which
Yeah.
is it is part of how, even with the best of intentions, even with the best training and the best everything, the road to damnation is paved with good intentions, and like
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
people who want to do good can and will make mistakes.
Hmm.
And as much as I disagree with, I'm forgetting his name, the senator who meets with Renestra in the
Oh,
show, as much as I disagree with kind of his
Ray.
conclusions,
What was his
I
name?
think he brought up exactly the salient point, which is what's going to happen when a Jedi turns sour.
Yeah. Let me Google
And
his
we know
character.
the answer,
Yep.
which is Order 66 and the Empire.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And there were some elements of Acolyte that I really enjoyed. The
Ray
introduction
and Court.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
The introduction of Cortosis was great. Also, spoiler
Yes.
alert, if
So
you haven't
fun.
seen Acolyte, go watch it.
Yeah, we're
Yes.
gonna talk
Yeah.
about everything in it.
So,
Yes.
so the introduction of Cortosis was amazing. And
Mhm.
and Leah, I agree with you completely because like, there's all this chatter in the prequel about, critics of the Jedi and that the Jedi aren't like the defenders of peace that they used to be, but everybody still wanted them to be like the heroic good guys all the way
Yeah.
through. It's like, well, in order for Palpatine's rise and the disillusionment of the Republic towards the Jedi to have even happened, the Jedi have to be shown digging their own grave at some point.
Right. And
Absolutely.
like they had the best of intentions, but they're going to make mistakes. They're people
Mhm.
just like everyone else in the galaxy. And the
Yep.
fact that the Republic is expecting so much of them, and the
Yep.
fact that because of that, they're not really beholden to anyone but themselves.
Yeah.
Like we don't have what we see in phase 2 of the High Republic, where like there's other force groups who kind of can balance out
Yes.
the Jedi.
Right.
We don't have the thing where the Jedi are more decentralized as much
Yeah.
as we
Yeah.
see in phase 1 and phase 3 of the High Republic. It's the Jedi are becoming centralized, they're becoming insular.
Yep.
They're cutting themselves off from the galaxy, which means that
Mhm.
when they interact with the galaxy, they don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And real quick, because I actually do wanna ducktail off of that point that
Go for
you
it.
just brought up, Leah. Real quick. Bren, yes, I have my criticisms too. A lot of people have their criticisms with the show.
Oh, I
And
do as well.
yeah. And it's great. Like even if you I absolutely hated that people interpreted the show in a very binary way when that was not the point. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes, and we will get to that. But Leah, I love how you talk about the Jedi becoming centralized because, and I think that the living force is another great companion to the acolyte.
Yes.
Um,
Where
and
we see
that's
them closing down the
yes,
outlying temples. The
yes,
last of the outlying temples.
and that's John Jackson Miller's novel, and I just think it's really cool that we really see the Jedi shift from the whole galactic mentality to, well, we got to focus on like what's going on the core
Right.
worlds, aka Coruscant.
Like
Yeah,
phase 1 of the High Republic, even
yeah,
a small, barely populated planet like TK has its
yeah,
own Jedi outpost.
yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, look at
Um,
Elfrona.
Even in the Acolyte, obviously not every planet has this anymore, but
Yeah,
I always think of the line in episode 1, like one of the first lines, "Where's your Jedi?"
yeah,
There's kind of the implication that like Indara is a part of this community. Like she's
mhm,
been here for some time. The people know that they can come to her when they have problems. They know where
yeah,
she is. They know who she is. She's
absolutely.
sitting at a table with the common people. Like and
Hmm.
this kind of connects into Wayseeker, also
Yeah,
one of the tie-in novels.
hmm,
Um, Indara is kind of one of the last of a dying breed of frontier
yeah.
Jedi.
Mhm.
It's what
It's what
happened. Yeah,
happens when any group gets too
yeah,
intertwined
exactly.
with the government, and that's kind of what we see, especially Vernestra trying to push back against. But even in pushing back against it, she's still like using the same. Like she can't fix the fundamental problems that
Mm-mm,
have set root in the order,
hmm.
because she's just one person. And because of that, even in trying to work around the problems, she is accidentally further perpetuating them
Yeah,
and
yeah.
further entrenching them.
Mhm.
And um, yeah, I mean that's like a really nuanced concept
Hmm.
to see in a Star Wars show.
Yeah.
And I see why people kind of reduced it to a binary. Is this pro Jedi? Is this anti Jedi? Is this pro Sith? I don't think it was. I don't think if you're writing a pro Sith story, you show them Swiss cheesing a
No,
teenage girl.
no,
Um,
no, you do not.
and if that is what
Yeah,
you're trying to
definitely
do,
not.
you should seek therapy.
Yeah, I mean,
but
even with the Darth Bane books being as gruesome as they were, they never showed a kid getting Swiss
getting
cheesed.
Swiss cheese.
Right.
And also shout out. This is about Celebration and any other con where any Acolyte cosplayers show up. Shout out to the inevitable Jackie and the Stranger photo shoot that happens at every single convention since the show has aired.
Yes.
Because they're always good, they're always fun to see, and everyone should keep doing it.
Personally, I loved all the Yord memes that came out of the show.
The Yord, that
Like,
like Yord Horde, people have
Yes.
tried to
Jackie
Mhm.
Jam.
people have tried to do equivalent to the Yord Horde since,
What's the matter?
you know, and as much as I love
What?
as much as I love Neil Nation, as much as I loved
Turgletown.
you know, Turgletown, like Yord Horde was such a flash in the pan moment.
yeah.
It was.
And it was very funny how so many people, like people who saw the preview or who were at the premiere, just happened to latch on to, you know, sometimes it seemed like some people thought that it was because we thought that he was hot or because we thought that whatever. It was because he was not
older man.
he was not something.
I heard that.
I mean, yeah, he was a kind of, for lack of a better word, pathetic man, and it was fun to see. It was fun to see that in a Jedi. It was fun to see a Jedi who's straight edge like that, but not like on the council. Like that's really all that
Yeah.
we had seen Jedi in that position before.
I jumped in on the Yord meme trend. I did I took a cutout of Yord and I placed him over an artillery gun and I put a caption in heavy Yordnance.
Exactly.
Heavy ordnance. Yes. 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 I mean, the memes that did come from this show, because we had Yord Horde, we had Jackie Jam, we were calling
The Soul Patrol
we had the
or
Soul
the Soul
Patrol,
Train. I saw both.
the Soul Train, the Soul Patrol. We had the OSHA violations. We had the mayhem. You know,
That Anastasia quote is a very good distillation of,
yes.
because like the Jedi, you cannot argue that they are, you know,
These are your pants.
they're good. I mean, like they
Yeah.
want to do good in the galaxy. The
Mhm.
problem came that they had too much power, too centralized,
I
and
agree.
and that's where we see the conflict of the show come up. You know, there's
Yeah.
no it's not phase 2 anymore. There's not other force groups that
Yeah.
these kids could get moved to. There's not acceptance of other force groups anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I agree.
I finally just read the Qui-Gon Jinn graphic novel by George Mann that came out, I
I
think,
still
earlier
need to
this
read
year.
that. Yeah, I still need to read that.
And that one it also ties in a lot to this kind of same idea of most of the Jedi have become a lot more insulated from the idea of other force religions, from the idea of other people, other groups of people trained to use the force.
Well, you know,
And
Yeah.
that whole book is about Qui-Gon over the course of his life dealing with one of those groups, the Brotherhood of
Mhm.
the Ninth Door.
well, and it kind of
Oh, yeah,
there
that's
are
good too.
so many nods to Legends in Acolyte because like
Yes.
you know,
Oh
the-
my God.
the dogmatism that the Jedi have towards
Yes.
other Force users goes all the way back to the original Jedi trying to drive out the Force healers.
Yeah.
And I forget the name of their group, but to my
Yeah.
knowledge, I believe it was that conflict and their exile that led to the creation of the Sith
Yeah,
as
that was John
yeah.
Jackson Miller's Lost Tribe of the Sith.
Mhm,
That
right.
yeah.
but the other thing too that I really liked about the Force Coven that the Jedi stumble
Mhm.
upon, it's like, there were a lot of people that criticized. It was like, oh well, if they can do this, then Anakin isn't special anymore. Blah blah blah. Plagueis had to learn it from somewhere, you know.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
if you look at Legends, convergences in the Force healing, Force,
Well,
Force in nature,
yeah.
It's like it all, it's all not new under the sun,
I
even in
mean,
Legends.
if
And I
you
mean, even in canon, you
yes.
have Taron Malicos, who his whole thing is he
Yeah.
wanted to learn the magic of the Night Sisters.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In the Clone Wars, you have that with both Dooku and Plagueis wanted to learn or not Plagueis, Sidious wanted to learn the magic of
Yeah.
the Night Sisters.
Well, also,
Anytime, yeah.
yeah. No, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll let you finish your thought.
And you could even make the argument that that's part of why the Sith ended up winning, is because rather than the Jedi who became more insulated and stuck to their doctrine as we move from the High Republic to the Late Republic, Night Sisters mentioned,
Yes.
uh, we the
I know
Sith
Katrina's paying attention.
the Sith, almost out of desperation,
Yeah.
leaned on learning things. The dark side is
Yes.
all about taking. The dark side
Right.
is all about taking things. It's selfishness.
Yeah.
So you could call it like almost an appropriation of these other Force skills. But
Yeah.
it's even, even in that way, it's like they're still open to these other
Yes, sir.
ideas where the Jedi have been
Yeah.
closing themselves off more and more for
Mhm.
200 years.
Well,
It's
I
part of. It's part of. Sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. No, you.
I was gonna say it's part of why I will confess I do like how they handled Luke in Legends a bit better than how they handled him in
I get
canon,
it. I
because
get it.
Because in Legends, he was so focused on learning from other groups.
Yeah.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
Legends Luke's Jedi Order allowed Jedi to marry and allowed
Yeah.
Jedi to love, as long and
Right.
shifted the emphasis not from never having attachments, but learning how to let those attachments
Um.
go.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I feel like, it seems like they're going the angle in for canon Luke that like that's what he's sticking with. But it is interesting that
Hmm.
when you get to kind of before this insularization of the Jedi,
Right.
even in kind of the later High Republic where we're seeing, Phase 3, um, you still see the Jedi, focusing on you can have these attachments, you just need to learn when to let them go. You need to
Yes.
not snap
Yes.
and kill people when
Master
um
Skywalker, what are we going to
yeah,
do?
I mean, to pull up, I don't know, Eric, are you good if I reference a recent issue of the High Republic Adventures?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'll get caught
Um
up. It's fine.
uh these characters have this ship, Starhopper, has been
Yep.
their home literally since they were children, and now Barzala has to destroy it because
Mhm.
it's going to kill a bunch of people, and
Mm,
he has to recognize that the right thing to do is to destroy his home
Yeah.
because it will, and he just has to move through the feelings and save the day because that's what
Yeah.
Jedi are about. And where we see people leaving the order, um, Lula Talasola, Ty Yorick, uh, what it is it's people who they have something that they cannot let go,
Yeah.
and they know that they can't let it go.
Um.
And if that thing is the darkness, then you get the stranger.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to a point that you both were making about knowledge, and how we see it's really interesting. We see the dark side really like trying to go for this knowledge, trying to like really learn all aspects of the Force. And I find it interesting that when we look at the Jedi and we look at like Jedi archivists and Jedi folklorists and everything. Like I'm looking at Indara, I'm looking at Comac Vitus, I'm looking at oh God, the librarian. Jocasta knew. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking at all of them. And when you look at them, you see how much they hoard knowledge for themselves and
Mm-hmm.
how much the Jedi Order hoards knowledge for themselves. And yet, if you look at it, like Dooku Jedi Lost is the perfect example for this, where Dooku has to sneak into the restricted section in order to gain the knowledge that he is seeking to
Yeah.
help himself and also help the people around him.
Yeah.
And that to
Yeah.
me is just, it's really interesting how, like, when we're talking about knowledge, and I just find it interesting that, like, when we like going back to Legends, like when we see Darth Bane, Bane utilizes the knowledge that he himself has gained, and he actually gives it to other people in order to continue the rule of two, in order
Right.
to continue the rebuild of the Sith Order. And like with the Jedi, I believe their hoarding of knowledge actually was one of the causes of their downfall.
Yeah. I think you mentioned Comac Vitus. He has a
Yes.
line in Into the Dark, one of the first books of the High Republic,
Yes.
where he says basically that even though he absolutely agrees that like a Jedi should hold to the light, like should strive for the
Agreed.
light, the act of so hard line separating the light and the dark, and even refusing to think about the dark,
Mm-hmm.
is an act of violence against the Force itself, and
I agree.
is an
Yeah.
absolute disservice to the Jedi.
Yes.
Because if you ignore problems, they don't go away. You
Mhm.
can't just say there is no selfishness in the world, because there is. What you need to do
Yeah.
is you need to acknowledge it and learn. It's like attachments. You need to acknowledge them and learn to deal with them.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
But then as you get
yeah.
the later Jedi, as you get canon Luke's Jedi Order, they have so restricted their worldview. They have so
Yes.
restricted like what they will even consider. Luke, out of necessity, because so much was destroyed, and the late Republic Jedi Order, out of almost a fear of what happens out in the galaxy, that they have so damaged their ability to deal with these problems when they do come up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Matt.
I was gonna actually forgot what I was gonna say. Who are you guys again?
I like that
That
we can
train is
bring
left.
in the EU
Yeah.
post Rot J Luke, because like that was like I feel like I'm in a weird position because I like having both Lukes to think about.
I do too. I do too.
I feel like a lot of people like one or the other, but like I really think both have something interesting to say. One
Mhm.
is a Luke that is wants to figure out this stuff for himself, that wants to
Yes.
explore this, and one is a Luke that is so fixated on the past. One is a
Yeah.
Luke that is, I need to rebuild the order as it was, or else I'll get it wrong, not
Hey,
realizing that the
Andrew.
order
Yeah.
as it was is part of what
Yeah.
not made it fall. The Jedi were not at fault for Order 66, but
Right.
they were unable to be prepared for it because of
Yeah.
Yeah.
that. So
The
when a similar problem arose for him, he was similarly
Yep.
unprepared.
And I do think that the canon shift of um kind of like so and we see this not just with Luke's Jedi Order in canon, but also how Mon Mothma tried to revert the Republic basically
Yeah.
exactly to how it was before the rise of the Empire. I think I mean people are free to disagree with me. I think that was a bit of a mistake
I mean,
literarily speaking,
you
because
see, yeah,
you have in Legends you have a Republic and a Jedi Order that have learned from the mistakes that led to the rise of Palpatine, and you don't really see that translate well over in canon.
and I mean, I
That's
think
true.
that is, and I like having both of these stories. I
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
we can see. and I think it kind of speaks to maybe a modern pessimism, if that makes sense. Because like obviously these books and stories are products of when they're written. They exist in the context of the world around the writers. And I think there is kind of a pessimism right now about like, would we be able to rebuild from something like that? Would we make the same mistakes again? And I think it is an interesting storytelling angle to be like, because it does, one, it gives you conflicts that you can have in a story, which you kind of need conflicts to have a story. So I do get that from a writing perspective.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting how they've shown that. Like in Ahsoka, you immediately have, even a couple of years after Return of the Jedi, you already have corrupt senators. You have senators who are completely given over to self-interest. Oh, the lightsaber choreography.
We're gonna
talking
get to that.
Acolyte.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're gonna get that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, you have and you have a republic that is um so focused on itself that it is not and I think we're going to get this in the new main comic run that's coming out now,
Yes,
the
we are.
Alex Segura run, where it's the Republic just thinks that people should want to join the Republic, and does not consider that the way to do that, a la Phase 2 of the High Republic, is to be a source of light and good in the galaxy, even if people are not paying taxes to you, even if people are not, answering to your laws. And I think it's interesting that they went that angle. I think it tells a lot about what is in these writers' heads. And I say that in a very neutral way, like that's just how writing works.
Yeah.
And I think you see that also in The Acolyte. I think this is a story that is told with the idea of this is a group that has gotten too much power for its own good.
Yeah.
And even though they are not evil and they are not turning to evil, power still affects how you behave.
Absolutely. Power corrupts, absolutely.
And since they are in this position where they are all but unassailable, and they're used to being all but unassailable, what happens when they are assailed? What happens when they hit a problem that they can't immediately solve?
Well,
and what happens is they mess up and they make more problems.
The Battle of Geonosis was a perfect example of this, because it's like
Right.
you have Jedi that are basically running head first into droid armies in an open field, and it results in, I think, like what, half the clone army on Geonosis being completely destroyed.
It was a good chunk.
So many Jedi.
Yeah.
Kanan Jarrus talks about there being 10,000 Jedi at the.
Yeah, it was about 10,000.
Was that at the start or the end of the Clone Wars?
It was, I think it was at the start of the Clone Wars, and
right.
by the end of it, like it was about half of that.
Yeah,
by the end, yeah.
The Clone Wars was horrible on the Jedi, and there's the implication that the Jedi never recovered from the Nihil.
No,
the Jedi never recovered from the High Republic, and that's part of why they retracted so much.
Yeah,
they got more power and fewer people to spread it out amongst, which meant that each person was given so much authority that you get Soul on Brendok, that you get
And those kinds of shenanigans are what created someone like Tarkin in the first place, because Tarkin came up around incompetent Jedi generals.
Well,
the Jedi shouldn't have been generals. They weren't trained for that.
No.
Tarkin was right about that. Tia Toon in the High Republic, for as much as he's a jerk, he's right that the Jedi should not be given so much military authority.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like when they start becoming a branch of the government of the Republic,
right,
that's
which you see at the end of the High Republic.
Yeah, that's when the red flags start. That to me is when the Jedi should have been like, we need to take a step back from this. We need to become that galaxy spanning group like we were, and we need to focus on everybody, not just who the
Right.
Republic wants us
We
to
need to
focus
focus on helping the people in the Outer Rim who
Exactly.
are rebuilding their lives.
And that's
And instead they leave the Outer Rim to fester, and then you get Tatooine.
and that's why I love Wayseeker as much as I do, because
Yes.
we're seeing Vernestra carrying out the original mission of the Jedi
While
with
everyone else.
yeah. And for them to send Indara, I feel like Yaddle felt like if I can send Indara and she can learn from Vernestra, then that gives an opportunity to rebuild the Jedi Order as that guardians of peace and justice throughout the entire galaxy, no matter where you are in the galaxy, and you don't have to be a member of the Republic worlds. And I really feel like Yaddle is like holding on to that High Republic thing, or that old mentality from the High Republic era
Yes.
in that novel. And it really just translates more and more into the TV show, and like why we see, like you said earlier, Indara with the people
Yeah.
because of how
She's
much
one of
time
the
she
only ones who
spends.
we see, because even the Jedi on, oh, I'm forgetting the planet name.
It's the one from the beginning. Yeah.
From the second episode, yeah.
Hmm.
Um they are still more insulated. Like that
Yeah.
seems more like a monastery rather than
Yeah.
working for the people.
It's a
Which is
religious
like that's
temple.
fine. It is a
Yeah.
religious temple. The Jedi have always had those,
Hmm.
but the fact that it is even in light, even in why am I forgetting the name of John Jackson Miller's book?
Oh, Living Force.
Living Forest. Even
Yeah.
in the Living Forest, the temple on Quen seems much more like a contemplative meditation spot
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
a
And
bastion for the light in the galaxy.
I agree.
And I think it's tragic to be able to see that dichotomy getting worse and worse.
I agree, John.
Mhm.
I wish that they had kept the mystery going. I really do. However, I feel like that's one of the criticisms that I do have for the show, is that I wish that the mystery had continued.
Yeah.
However, I like what they did. I really like what they did.
Yeah, and
Mm.
I think it's clear that they like I kind of enjoyed the mystery pivoting from what we thought that the mystery was to, so why did this all, what made this
Yeah.
possible to happen?
I think
Because it's
yeah.
like we found the murderer. What is the motive?
Hmm. And that's why I love the two Brendock episodes as much as I do, the two
Yes.
Brendock flashback episodes, because we are getting that motive, that motive for Osha. I mean, not
Yeah.
or a
For
motive
May
for
and
May.
Osha, for
Yeah,
everything that
Mhm.
they are, everything that they do.
exactly. And
And yeah,
how it's not just a black and white area. There's a lot of gray to the Brendock situation.
yeah.
Um,
Because
Mhm.
like yes, Osha did not want to participate in this, and she should not be forced to. But
yes,
also, the Jedi really didn't have a right to push in as harshly as they did
I
and
agree.
to
Mhm.
judge these people so harshly.
And can I say something on that point?
Go for it.
I think that is one of the flaws that Indara gets from Vernestra when
100%.
she's
100%.
learning about what it
Mhm.
means to be a Jedi at that point.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
Vernestra's whole thing is the Force is telling me to go in. Uh,
exactly.
Vernestra is very aggressive. And I don't
She
just
is.
mean that in a fighting violence way. She is very,
Yeah,
she approaches every problem very head on.
she
And it
does.
is clear that she taught that to Indara.
Yes.
Indara does not start the book that way.
No.
But the thing about Vernestra is Vernestra kind of reminds me of Ahsoka actually in a lot of ways
She
because
does. She does.
she comes into her skill with the Force in a time of conflict, and thus
Yes.
her relationship to the Force will always be tied to fighting.
Hmm.
when we see Ahsoka go into her vision quest in the World Between Worlds, it is only fighting.
Yeah.
When we see her training, it is only in the context of fighting.
Mhm.
And we see that with Vernestra too. Vernestra
Yeah.
is always approaching things as a fight,
Yeah.
even when it doesn't have to be.
And and I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to Indara, and especially in the Brendok situation,
Yeah.
she means well, because she's
She
like,
wants to help people.
she does.
Mhm.
She wants to help people. Sol wants to help people. Kelnaka wants to help people. Everybody there wants to help somebody.
And Torben is unfortunately dragged along.
Torben is like Wreath Silas in a way in that
He
moment.
is. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to be on an adventure.
No, he
And
wants to be back at the
his
temple.
life is ruined because of it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
But I see where Indara is like, well, they need to be with the order. They're force sensitive children. They need to be trained in the order.
because she's grown up in an era where there is
Yeah.
no other option.
But at the same time, if I was Vernestra, I'd be like, well, wait a second. They could go to Jeddah and learn from the
Right.
different force religions.
There's the
Right.
Guardians of the Wills. There's
Yeah.
the Church of the Force. There's
Yeah.
the Lanto. But as we've learned from, I mean, we see they mention it a little in the Acolyte where they say like the galaxy is not kind to women like us.
Yeah.
We get the where we have in that Qui-Gon Jinn book the fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi has never even heard of the Brotherhood of the Ninth Door, despite them
Yeah.
being like known to be involved with the Battle of Jeddah.
Mhm.
The fact that even by Phase 3 of the High Republic, the Lanto and the what's Qatar? She's the fallen Os, like they're
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
all but forgotten in
Mhm.
the galaxy, because the Jedi took so much of the focus in the galaxy. The Jedi were given so much authority.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like you said, that Rey
Um,
was too young to decide to be a Jedi.
yeah, I love this
Yeah,
point from Bren. I love
that's
this point from Bren.
and that's part of the nuance of it.
Yeah.
The fact that it's like that very real world thing where it's like you never think that your kid is too young to make a decision if it's the decision that you want for them.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yep.
Um, no kid is too young to know that they're straight, but every kid, according to some people, is too young to know that they're gay, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I get
Um,
where you're coming from. It's all about indoctrination. It's all about,
it's all about expectations,
yeah.
like, you know, like every parent wants their kid to turn out good.
Mhm.
And most people consider themselves to be good. Thus,
Yeah.
most people want their kids to turn out like themselves. If that,
And
and I'm not
I
making a
do
value judgment on this. That is a
yeah.
normal thing to want.
No,
I
no,
do
I
have
mean, that's
a
every parent.
question though.
Sure.
Yeah,
The Brendok incident.
Mhm.
Do we think that this was the start of OSHA regulations within the Jedi Order?
I mean, I think it is. I'm taking this entirely seriously, by the way. I think that the situation with OSHA is 100% what makes the Jedi really lock down on like we cannot take kids that old. Like we
I
made
would
an
agree.
exception for
Yeah.
her, and we
Yeah.
should never do it again.
I
And then
agree.
they're like,
I agree.
"But he's the chosen one."
Yeah.
Uh,
I really
You
feel,
were the chosen one.
Leah, I actually agree with you there, because I feel like that is the final nail in the coffin for that,
yeah,
where they're
but
like,
I think that
yeah,
also
we
leads
can't.
them to further close themselves off.
Oh no, it does. It does. Because kids that age have so many attachments, as we've seen with May and Osha.
Right.
We've seen that.
And there's
And
an unwillingness to even try to help them, to even try to help
exactly.
them learn to let go.
Exactly. And while Osha wants to learn from Saul, wants to learn from the Jedi Order, she, like Anakin, she's being held back by her emotions.
Yeah.
Which
And
is really interesting.
And like Anakin, she, like, I think if not for the death of her mother, she probably could have been a great Jedi. But the fact
agree.
that she was kind of forced to neglect these attachments, that they were taken from her rather than her being able to give them away. Like, if Anakin's mother had not died, as much as he has always flirted with the dark side, I don't think he ever would have fallen.
Yeah.
I also
think
feel
that it was
if
him
Qui-Gon
being
had been
stripped of his, of Qui-Gon, of his mother, him being repeatedly stripped of these things is what makes him hold on so tightly to Padme.
Right.
And is what makes Osha, in this case, the second that Chimere gives her a branch to grab onto, that makes her latch on and cast aside the branch that she'd previously been holding onto, which was Soul.
because he offers her comfort, he offers her that attachment, he offers
her
those answers.
a scapegoat.
Yeah.
He says that man who you've been that attachment you've been holding on to, that that rope that you've been holding, is the very one that killed your mother.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're not, she was a traumatized child. She's going to react poorly in that situation.
And I would have really loved to have seen her training in like an episode or two.
I would have liked maybe her retraining, like maybe her getting to do a little practice with Jackie or Yord, just in that kind of in between, like, just so that we could see kind of what her relationship to Jedi skills is like, even if we're not getting a flashback of it.
It was also,
if we could see her,
yeah,
or maybe her watching Jackie and Soul training and like commenting to Yord, like, that's nothing like how how Soul taught me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, go ahead.
Older sibling, younger sibling.
Yeah.
thing.
Oh,
I do, and it kind of leads into the world building that Acolyte does. That I really enjoyed the world building because I mean, like the first episode opens with trade feds, and it was cool to see that, in the sense of like, these guys aren't the big bad yet, but they're just
we're laying the groundwork.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because they're already doing irresponsible, illegal business practices.
What? Yeah.
They're
We're
like,
talking.
no, we would never have mechanics. That was outlawed by Republic decree. They're on the trade deck.
So the trade feds, the trade feds at this point in the lore are like Enron level, and not like Elon Musk bribing.
Oh no, they are Enron
level.
Yeah, the Trade Federation.
That's exactly
Enron.
Look, they're hiring the Pinkertons at this point. They don't have their own private army.
They are. But I do love I'm the same way. I love all of the different hints that we get. I love the world building. This show, Leah, like you and I have talked about this time and time again. This show takes everything that we love from the High Republic and all of these amazing stories and really does capitalize on them. And when I look at Osha, I also look at Barash a little bit. I also feel a little bit like she is Barash at that point. And Soul is kind of the Porter Ingle to her Barash in a way.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Which I find really interesting. And then, of course, for them to mention the Barash vow, that was amazing.
Yeah.
If I could play devil's advocate, the Jedi, for all their faults, are needed in the galaxy, and/or shows us what the galaxy is like without them and without the light of the Force. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I feel that in order to get to Andor and to see how bleak the Andor is, we do have to see what the galaxy is like with the Jedi out and about in the galaxy. Absolutely.
If I may be a little spicy, I do think that not Andor, Acolyte's um, portrayal of the Jedi is very much a commentary on modern religious bodies today.
Oh no,
In,
it is.
in that
It is.
there is huge potential that when they live up to the things that they preach, that they can be a very vibrant force for good in the world.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
when they get to a place where it just turns into an echo chamber of we're right because we're right, and it's just people patting each other on the back without any real understanding of why they're doing what they're doing, that's when you get to, this kind of it, almost it ceases to be a movement of spiritual enlightenment and more of just political dominance. It's like we're right
Mhm.
because we say so, because we are who we are.
And that's why I love Phase 2 of the High Republic as much as I do, because we get the Jedi working in tandem with other Force religions on Jedha, because there's the convocation of the Force.
Right.
We get the convocation of the Force where you have the Jedi, you have the Guardians of the Wills, you have the Church of the Force, you have the Sorcerers of Tund in there as well. You have all of these different religions and
Right.
sections of the Force represented on Jedha, where to me that truly is the golden age of the Jedi right there.
Yeah.
Because I'm a religious person, I'm very bothered by those who
Yeah.
use religious authority and give bad names. Exactly, and
That's
that's our
and
whole
yeah.
point.
Like and it's not like, Jedi who were really focused on trying to just be a light in the galaxy,
Exactly.
which
Yep.
is what they always were supposed to be. Like, it's not like that went away. It's just
No,
that they became
they
the
became
the
radicalized.
machinery of the order around them
Right.
Yeah,
became so suffocating and bureaucratic and
Mhm.
enmeshed with the Republic that the most that they could do was go against it, which in that case
Mhm.
then just weakened the order and made it lock down more. Um,
Essentially, they
yeah,
became radicalized by the ideals of the Republic.
and
Mhm.
it's so interesting to see that, and it's such an interesting part of this story.
Mhm.
Um, like, and yeah,
Hey,
I think
Scarif.
Qui-Gon is someone who gets brought up a lot as one of the later Jedi who really fits kind of the idea of a way seeker. But I don't
Absolutely.
think if he were in the High Republic, he would ever be a way seeker. Because I think
No.
the Order in the High Republic much closer matches what he thinks the Order should be.
And
Mhm.
honestly, I think that if Qui-Gon had been in the High Republic, he would have been on the council.
He would have said yes to the council
Yeah,
appointment. Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, they altered their
Agreed, John.
beliefs into control for
Yeah.
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah,
They
100%.
and they didn't think that they were doing it because it was
Mhm.
never a conscious choice. They
No.
just further and further they the road to fascism is paved in safety.
Mhm.
Yup.
Just like the road to damnation is paved with good intentions. They
Oh,
wanted to protect themselves,
Mhm.
and that came at the expense of the galaxy.
absolutely.
There's a fascinating parallel in the Middle Ages to kind of what the Jedi become in the High Republic, and it's you see it played out in Catholic monasteries,
Yes.
because the very much kind of the work and pray culture that
Yeah.
medieval
Yeah.
Catholic monasteries had. They would work and they would pray, and because most of them took vows of poverty, they were not collecting a wage; they just got a stipend for the basics. So all
Right.
that money was getting shoveled away. And then so what would happen is you would have these monasteries grow into what were basically medieval
Mega
European
churches.
corporations. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they would expand to the point where they would lose sight of the original scope of why they started off the way they did.
Right.
And then that's when
Yeah.
you get break off factions that try to reform, kind of the original vision of it. And I
Yeah.
see that parallel a bit with the kind of the late Republic Jedi here, to
Yeah.
where it's like
I
they've
think
gotten very
yeah.
comfortable in just like we're right because we're right, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that is a fascinating
I agree.
comparison.
Hmm.
And to kind of further go on it, um, a lot of where you see these European style Catholic monasteries first taking hold is very, very, very early in the Middle Ages. They were a very
Yeah.
early
Yeah.
thing to happen. And in fact, you saw that happening at the time when there were still kind of a mix of different religious communities in Europe. This is before the
Mhm.
kind of homogenization.
Right.
And you see as that
Absolutely, Brett.
tapestry becomes more monotone, as one group came into dominance, as one group became kind of, in both legal terms and cultural terms, the standard that everything else was compared to or forced to acquiesce to. That is where you see what was once, people doing, people being doctors, people being brewers, people being,
Yeah.
just generally doing good works in the community, where you see that turning into the overinflated, wealthy monasteries that then later, the kings of England would strip for obscene amounts of money.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I find it all fascinating
without,
where
yeah.
I mean, that's true. Faith without works is dead.
And
And yeah,
that's the fall of the Jedi.
yeah,
And right when they were in a position where they could have come back to helping heal a big divide in the galaxy, like is kind
absolutely.
of their modus operandi, Sidious manipulated them into a war,
Yeah.
and completely broke their ability to solve problems in the ways that they had always tried to do before.
Yeah. And that's true, Bren. If you're not doing the good work, then your beliefs mean nothing. That's true. I mean, and that's
And that's why you
ultimately
see so many
yeah.
people in the Clone Wars hating the Jedi, because they stopped doing
Yes.
good works, at least outside of the
Mhm.
Republic. All that they did was like Face Without Orcs, which is quite healthy. And then you saw
Eric's just like, why did I bring him on?
the only way that they did good works anymore was through violence, which
Right.
is not
Yeah.
going to endear you to anyone.
Well,
Mhm.
there's that, and then during this era, in the High Republic era, and Wayseeker, I'm going to keep coming back to Wayseeker, even though I'm halfway through it,
Wayseeker
because
is a great.
it
Mhm.
is, and
It's
it's
it's a turning
companion.
point in the
Yeah,
era.
Yep.
and it's a great companion to the Acolyte. Absolutely
100%.
fantastic.
A
Peacekeepers into warriors
yeah.
doesn't work as the Clone Wars show. Yeah, but like with Wayseeker, even Vernestra in the beginning of the book says we're not supposed to take lives. We are not supposed to be violent.
Right.
Mhm.
Um, and the Jedi, like even Saul tries to get that point across in the
Yeah.
Acolyte too, where he's like, no, we have to approach this situation in the way that we are meant to approach this situation. We're guardians of peace. We need to be peaceful. We cannot go in guns blazing.
But
That's
then his this nascent attachment, he can't let it go,
exactly.
and he lets it drive him. And
Exactly. His love for OSHA ends up causing his downfall.
causing OSHA more pain than she would have
Exactly.
had otherwise.
Exactly.
Um, I can't imagine that there's a world in which, even if OSHA had gone through with the ascension, that she couldn't at some point break free of it if that's what she wanted.
Oh,
Right.
she totally could have because she
Um,
could have gone on a pilgrimage.
right. And even if she's tied through the force to this, whatever, the force ultimately moves toward balance and towards life and towards, and I think like she would have been able to find a way out.
Yeah.
But the fact that all of her choices were taken from her is where she ends
Mhm.
up.
And but
So
it's also an interesting commentary too on coming back to the conversation about forcing children to make decisions that will impact them for the rest of their lives before they're even
Right.
ready for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now hypothetical here. Say OSHA did ascend with May, right? And she's with the coven for a while. how does she break free at that point? Like, how do you think that the Force would present that opportunity to her? Do you think that Jedi come to Brendok, or do you think she finds another way off of that world? And where does she end up? Does she end up on Jeddah? Does she end up at a Jedi temple?
I
Mhm.
mean, I think Jeddah would be, kind of like what Marda tried to do with the path.
Yep.
Yeah,
Jeddah seems like it was kind of um a place where,
it
I
was
mean,
a
you
melting
even see
pot.
this into the Imperial era.
Yeah,
It is a
Mhm.
place where you can go to kind of get away from a lot of it is a place where everyone wants to go because there is a lot of force power there, there's a lot of
mhm,
everything there, but it is also a place where they are relatively free from the normal preconceptions that these groups have for one another.
so
See the other Force religions. I think it's good that the Acolyte focused on just the Jedi and the witches, just
yeah,
because otherwise it would have been really busy. But I do agree that I think maybe they should have brought it up. They should have been like,
mhm.
but I think it's also telling about the era that they didn't bring it up, that this wasn't something that was considered, because that does tie into then the Jedi seeing themselves as the only game in town.
Yeah. So I have another question for you. While we're talking about Jeddah, real quick.
Yeah.
Um, do you think in that era, and I'll even say in that Rogue One era, do you think there's still a convocation of the Force that's kind of running things on Jeddah, or do you think that kind of has fallen by the wayside at this point?
I think so. We know that Jeddah at one point was primarily administered by the Jedi, and then the convocation was put in to
Yeah.
equalize things.
Mhm.
I think, especially with the recall order, so especially at least the latest end date that I can think of for this is the recall order.
Mhm.
I think the Jedi leaving the convocation leads to, rather than having the Jedi be part of this tapestry, leads to it being the Jedi and the rest.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which then makes the Jedi seem like they are equal to all of the rest combined, which then further shrinks them in
Yeah,
authority. Like,
I
I
agree.
can see there still being a convocation on Jeddah, even into the Rogue One era.
Yeah.
I can absolutely see it being a shell of what
Mhm.
it once
Yeah.
was. I can see it being a
They're not
um
as involved day to day in
right,
in
they're
the
not as
comings and
involved,
going.
they're not as powerful, they're not as
Yeah.
respected.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because all of that respect was taken by the Jedi, which,
Mhm.
like Comac said, is an act of violence against the Force, even if it
Yeah.
comes from the best of intentions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Matt, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I don't remember.
Sorry, I feel like I keep talking.
No, no, no.
No.
You're good. For the audience, I just had surgery yesterday, so my brain's coming in and out.
Um.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
Who are
I.
you guys again?
We'll talk later. Uh.
We'll tell you
Um.
when you're older.
Yeah. I'm Santa. Um. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, I feel like with looking at the acolyte, we do definitely have to. And a lot of this conversation has talked. We have talked about um the Jedi as a religion and the Force as a religion, which is a big thing, especially like with the acolyte, because
Yeah,
that's because both the Jedi and the Sith are religions of the Force.
yeah.
Um, and it wouldn't be the acolyte without talking about politics as well, because that is something that we've covered.
And
Um,
that is an explicit part of the story.
Absolutely, especially with Senator Rayencourt doing that inquisition into the Jedi Order. Um, like there was going to be a tribunal about the Jedi Order and their operations, which I find really interesting. Um, My question, I have another question about the Jedi Order, and then we can talk more about the fun, the more fun stuff with like lightsaber fights
The
and stuff like
lightsaber.
that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, but my question here goes back to the Shadow Council.
Mhm.
Um, do you who do you think was behind that? Do you think Yaddle was actually behind the formation of the Shadow
I
Council?
I can see maybe if she's not behind it that she was supportive of it because we know
Yeah,
that Yaddle, maybe not at this time, but she is on and off a council member.
she is.
Um, so I can see her being like kind of helping to keep council attention off of this secondary council because
Yeah.
we know that even by the end of the High Republic novels that the council itself is becoming more in contact with the Republic.
Yes.
Um, and I think it makes sense that there would be a backlash to that, that there would
Mhm,
be Jedi who would want to manage their own affairs and see
mhm.
to protecting the light in the galaxy, even where the Republic does not want that.
Yeah.
Do you
Um,
think that this goes back further than what we've been seeing in the Acolyte? Like, do you think like this could have also been a manifestation from Elzar and Avar, or
I
maybe
mean,
even a
I
manifestation
think,
from
I think,
Eve?
even if it's not a continuous group,
Yeah,
I think there's always going to be a counterculture in any
absolutely.
group. And the Jedi Council is always going to be an authority, a collection of authority figures.
Mhm.
And I think in a group like the Jedi, there always has to be people who question that authority. The
Yes.
Jedi should not fully acquiesce to authority figures because then they can be corrupted. Um, and I think, if you look in any era, you're going to have Jedi um, who go against the grain, and sometimes that ends up really causing problems. Revan,
Yep.
and sometimes it's going to save the galaxy.
I agree.
Elzar being a kind of outsider and then coming in for Light of the Jedi.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think I can see this being just one manifestation of an idea that maybe goes back to the Prime Jedi.
Mhm.
You could even think of like shadow, the first Shadow Council in the Jedi Order. It could have been, um, it might have been the future Sith, and it might have been just some Jedi um, who didn't like some, little thing that was happening. Like, I think that there's always been a shadow council. I don't think it's like
Yeah.
a continuous group. I think it's
Mhm.
just a concept that keeps arising.
I agree. I agree. I think it's one of those things that shows up like when they desperately need it
Yeah,
at that moment.
it's
Um,
the Jedi King Arthur.
it really is. It's the Jedi Knights of the Round Table, essentially,
Yeah,
at that point. Um, all right. Before we get into the fun stuff, I want to talk criticisms with the show real quick.
yeah,
Um, and John brought up a good criticism with the way that they dropped the mystery about halfway through the season,
Yeah.
um, which we still get sprinkles of it here and there. But I agree. I think that if you're gonna do it as a mystery show, you keep the mystery going. I think that Plagueis honestly should have been a bigger reveal.
I
Um,
think, yeah, I
Yeah.
think the Plagueis one is the biggest case of, oh, this was so setting
I
up
agree,
to
Brad.
be just a tease for another season. This was
Yeah.
hmm
so
Well, even the
um
Yoda tease too.
the Yoda
Yeah.
tease, where like it's so clear that they just wanted this to be a little moment that they could call back to when they have the big thing.
hmm
Um,
Yeah.
because I almost feel like it would have even been worse for not getting a second season if they had made a big deal of having Plagueis here and then he doesn't do anything because there's no place for him to do something in the story here.
No, that's true.
Because he can't show his hand right now.
Yeah,
It just won't work.
he has to show
Right.
that down the line.
So him being in the shadows, I think, is where he belongs in this moment.
Mhm.
But I think the fact that we never get to see that hand being shown
Mhm.
is a
Yeah.
disservice to the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's like they had really they put a lot of work into setting themselves up for a second
Yes.
season.
Oh,
and,
they did. They did.
and,
They
and
had really big ideas, and
I think she
unfortunately,
wrote
we
like
only got
3 or
to
4
see
seasons.
the start of some of these.
because like a Sith kind of like anti-hero, anti-villain struggling with her, her sense of right and wrong while, wrestling with her betrayal of the Jedi. That kind of that OSHA would be really, really cool to see played
Yeah.
out on screen. I think that I think that it's a tragedy that we're not going to get a second season. The haters really, really don't know what they kind of screwed us all out of on this one.
Yeah, I
So,
think
yeah, go ahead.
it reminds me of the Clone Wars. It reminds me of there was people like to deny that it was a thing.
Mhm.
I was there. There was so much hatred
Oh, I
for
was there too.
season 1 of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was inescapable.
Yeah.
But
So
it set up so much that then was able to grow over the
Mhm.
course of more seasons.
Yep.
so we were talking about how many seasons, or we were about to ask the question how many seasons they had planned.
Yeah.
In an interview with Manny Jacinto, Collider actually talks about this as well. The Acolyte had plans for at least 3 seasons and then a feature film.
Yeah.
Which I honestly
I can
can't tell if
totally
I had
see
problems
that
with the show
set
or
up.
if it was just a
Yeah,
Discord.
100%.
I honestly, Bren, I feel like it was the discourse that most of the people had a problem with the show.
The discourse soured the water so much.
Oh,
Like,
it did.
like, we could wax poetic all day about our nitpicks with all of the Star Wars shows. Even
Absolutely.
Andor, even Skeleton Crew.
Absolutely. Skeleton's crew is not perfect.
Right. But
There's a lot we could say about the original trilogy too.
yes.
I mean,
No,
yeah.
exactly.
Like,
but the way that the water was so muddied by vitriolic hate,
I agree.
with no kind of place in reason.
right.
Because, like, again, there are reasoned criticisms of every Star Wars project ever.
Yeah.
Except
And
the
we've shared
Ewoks
that.
cartoon. No, even especially the Ewoks cartoon.
Yeah. It's insane
Um,
to me that people complained about the canon of the Acolyte and yet said nothing about the retcons in Andor. Absolutely.
Literally.
absolutely,
Yeah.
like the Acolyte is like, I'm gonna be so honest. Even in the modern flattening of canonicity, reference books have always been and always will be the least canon thing in Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And somehow a trading card is even less canon than that.
Thank you.
Ki-Adi-Mundi's birthday being on a trading card 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
Garbage.
I think
I don't care about him being in the show.
I think
Go
even
ahead, Matt.
Lucas is quoted as saying continuity is for suckers. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
but
I see
yeah.
why Disney wants a firm canon because like they
Mhm.
want to be able to tell these stories and everything because
Right.
let's face it, and I'm gonna step on some toes here and with what I'm about to say. As much as I love the EU, as much as I love Legends, I
Mhm.
call it both the EU and I call it Legends. It just depends on what day it is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
As much as I love those things, let's face it, the continuity was a mess.
It was a mess.
Yeah.
It was a mess even within itself. Even
Yeah.
within, like, even if you just take any one given series of comics or books, if
Yes.
there were multiple authors, they stepped on each other's toes. And
The-
that's
the-
always going to be
Absolutely.
true for any group story.
The
New
problem
Jedi
is
Order is the biggest victim to that.
Mhm. The problem is, I think a lot of people fixate on the Thrawn trilogy, the Heir to the Empire trilogy,
And that was one story told by one man.
but
Yeah.
there were a lot of, I don't want to say mediocre.
Oh no, there are.
Yeah. There are a lot of mediocre EU books out there that were just kind of
Absolutely.
like,
I mean, I think, you know,
There's some current
the
canon
EU
that
had
doesn't
high
have
highs
either.
and low lows, as does the current canon.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like,
because like the first
let it-
order is basically just a reskin of Dark Empire, you know?
right. And
Mm.
like, you know, Force Collector is a clip show in book form. It's not good, and it'll never be good.
I mean, and,
Well,
and
it's like-
honestly, Lost Stars is a clip show in book form too,
Mhm.
And like,
but it's telling a
I think
different
Lost
story.
Stars handles it so much better because it
Oh,
has
no,
its
it
own
does.
story that it's telling. Whereas the story that Force Collector was telling is maybe the First Order isn't so bad.
While this kid's touching a lightsaber.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
no,
No,
I don't
Force
like that
Collector
book.
is pretty weak.
But like, what I'm saying is, you know, I think there's, and I think this ties into the Acolyte. There's so much good in the EU.
There is.
hmm
And
There's a
I
lot
think
of
the writers of the new canon have been really good about separating the wheat from the chaff from
Yeah.
the EU and bringing in things that were good.
I agree.
Cortosis, Plagueis, just in
Plagueis,
general.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, even
like how much of the 2002 Clone Wars, the Gendy Clone Wars, has been made canon? How much of those events have been made, like
Well,
the Battle at Hypori, the
General
uh,
Grievous.
Mace Windu 1v a billioning B2
Yeah.
battle droid. Like
I mean, General Grievous
General
was not
Grievous.
canon.
Or at least the
and-
way that he behaves was not canon.
Yeah. I love Bren's point. How many times did they get the Death Star plans in the EU? Too many times.
How many times? No, not even the Death Star plans. How many times did they get the shuttle Tidarium?
Oh, too many times. I mean,
At least 3 that I can think of.
it's in the X-Wing books like 5 times.
And like, I get it. I don't, and like, we're Star Wars fans. We've been Star
We
Wars
are.
fans for a long time.
Absolutely.
We saw the EU and that mess, and we see the canon and the new canon and the current mess,
Yeah,
and I love them both.
me too. Mount Tantus, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, like, and I think one thing that has always been really good about, like, really interesting about Star Wars is there's always going to be these inconsistencies in things, and that's part of the mythology of it. That's part of the one thing that's constant in Star Wars is the Force. The one thing that's constant is the battle between good and evil.
Yeah.
And that's what matters, you know, getting stuck in the weeds about when a random Jedi Master was born.
Exactly.
Because, like, 99% of characters in Star Wars do not have a canon age, let alone a canon birthday.
Oh, the only one that kind of has a canon age is Yoda.
I mean, the only
Because
ones who it really matters when they were born is, like, Luke, Leia, and Ezra.
And
Yeah.
even then,
And Rey.
you know,
Yeah.
And even then, though, you know, it's like with a lot of these people, it's just like, get a hobby, you know. It's
You're gonna if you're gonna nitpick Star Wars, you need to nitpick evenly. You need to constantly talk about the duct tape together stormtrooper armor in A New Hope.
Yeah.
You need
there's a scene in A New Hope where where Vader is clearly speaking and gesturing with his hands, but they cut the audio out. And I've always wondered, it's like, what was the original actor saying at that point? You know,
And that's true too, Bren. They did incorporate the original Gorman massacre into Andor, and it worked perfectly.
I like how they include things from the EU or how they change things when they come in. Like I know, you know, they changed some of the details with Cobb Vanth when they brought him into the Mandalorian.
Yes, they did.
But I
it
don't
worked.
think it does a disservice to the character. And the character, we still get the heart of who he is.
Honestly,
He is
I
the
think
same person in the core of his being.
honestly, I think Cobb Vanth is better in The Mandalorian than he is in Aftermath.
Mhm.
Honestly, I think he is. And,
Yeah,
and
because
that's just me. Yeah,
he's allowed to be a whole character. He's not
yeah,
just an example of what's happening in the galaxy.
yeah.
Right.
And I think
yeah.
we get even that with uh you know say like having Fest be Cassian Andor's cover story,
Yeah,
or um
which is
you know
awesome, by the way.
yeah, and I just think and we can even say like, oh, maybe the K2SO comic origin is like the cover story because they were saying in the show like nobody can know about this, like maybe they want to cover
Yeah.
up the fact that he perpetrated a massacre.
And even Tony Gilroy was just like, I'm gonna choose to ignore that comic.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I love the language that he used with that, but like fans had been ignoring that comic. No one's going to
I did love that language, but
like. I think uh, the average. I think even the most hardcore fan of the clones and the Clone Wars is not going to look at you askance for not knowing about the Battle of Quarmendi and the fall of Nexus City.
Mhm.
Um,
And even if somebody, I know for me personally, even if somebody were to try and nitpick me on that, I just be like, bro, I have a mortgage. I don't care.
I have a full-time job.
Yeah. Like, I have bills to pay. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
so funny that I didn't know that fact. I have rent due at the start of the month.
mhm.
Uh, uh, yeah, and I mean, like, it's that thing of, we can't let Star Wars has never been one person's project. As much as George Lucas was kind of the one that spawned it,
Mhm.
he did not make the movie alone.
Right.
Mhm.
Um, he didn't do the editing, he didn't do the acting, he didn't even do the directing on,
It's
you know.
Yeah, it's never been about perfect continuity with Star Wars. It's always been about
It's
telling stories that speak to the cultural soul of the
right.
people, of the people of the time, right? Because like,
Yeah.
A New Hope to Return of the Jedi is very much a traditional hero's journey type story, you know? And in that context, absolutely like granularly perfect continuity doesn't really matter.
Right.
Um, the Gorman massacre speaks very loudly to things that are going on around the world today.
Right.
Um, you know, the Acolyte series is a great commentary on when institutions become so complacent that they cease to actually be in action what they are on paper.
Yeah.
And it all still holds to that spirit of Star Wars. People
Yeah.
just need to they need to
So
get off of YouTube and touch grass a little bit more.
the Acolyte
They
was
need to touch bricks
Disney's.
and screws.
Yeah, no, they really
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
The Acolyte
seriously.
was Disney's second most watched show
Hmm.
um
Right
for the
after,
year,
what was it,
for right
Percy
after Percy
Jackson?
Jackson, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was the
Which, by the way, the Percy Jackson kids were at the premiere of The Acolyte.
yeah.
Oh, cool.
Uh, I just
Um
always like shouting that out.
so your top I'm just going to I'll give you the top 10 right now. So you have Percy Jackson and the Olympians at number 1.
Which
That
was
was
really good.
that was as of last year. I still need to watch Percy Jackson. Um The Acolyte at number 2, Agatha All Along at number 3.
Which got
Uh
rave reviews.
yeah, yeah, that did. Echo, the Daredevil Hawkeye spinoff,
Yes.
was at number 4. X-Men 97 at number 5.
Again,
Wow.
rave reviews.
97 was so good. Bad Batch at number 6. Skeleton Crew at 7. Ahsoka at 8, and then Mandalorian season 3 at 9, and Mandalorian season 1 at 10.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And it was, let me see here, what is the number? 2.7 billion minutes viewed for the Acolyte,
Yeah.
which is incredible.
Given
Mhm.
that it's one season, given that
Yeah.
it's and not even a particularly long
And
season.
They
let
should
me
bring it back
see
then.
here.
You know?
Well, here's the thing. There is, and if they're watching, I want to shout them out. It is the SaveTheAcolyte.com, which is really trying to push the petition for Disney to
Yeah.
bring the Acolyte back.
Mm.
They are talking about. They actually talked about the numbers recently, and it's still one of the highest watched shows even on Disney Plus now.
Wow.
A lot of people are rediscovering this show,
Yeah.
because people are still talking about it now a year later. And I really feel like the success of Andor really helped shine a light onto the Acolyte, and a lot of
Yeah.
people that watched and enjoyed Andor are watching the Acolyte now,
Mm.
and a
Because
lot of
An-
yeah.
because Andor proved that you could have Star Wars without a Skywalker or Tatooine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think both Andor and Acolyte are kind of good examples of they they achieved something that Star Wars achieved right at the start and has
Here it goes.
done a few times since, which is creating a kind of self-sustaining fandom, which
Mm.
I
will
agree.
grow on its own and will expand on its own and will, want more, but um,
Can we
like,
also talk about
yeah.
like the raw talent of the
Oh,
actors
it
that
was
played both
incredible.
Osha and
Oh my
May?
Oh,
God.
Like
Amanda Stenberg.
Amanda Stenberg killed
Yeah.
it with that.
absolutely
And
incredible.
I do think part of it is probably that it does seem like Disney and Lucasfilm are generally kind of starting to back away from streaming because I understand
Mm.
it is probably a less profitable model overall.
Yeah.
Well, they've
Um,
lost a lot of money with
which,
Disney
like,
Plus.
okay,
Mm.
business.
Yeah.
But like that doesn't mean that these stories can't continue in other ways. That doesn't mean that
I
um
think I think that cinema, like movies, are actually starting to pick back up
yeah,
again.
movies are starting to pick
Well,
back up.
you're
And
starting to get
also
more
like
and more event films.
Yeah.
yeah, and also like Amanda Stenberg has like written comics before,
Yeah.
and I would love to see like an OSHA continuation from
Mm.
them.
Yeah, I
That would
agree.
be so killer because uh Iman, Miss Marvel,
Yeah.
she got to write the comic for her
She's
character.
she's actually written a
Um,
couple of them.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
yeah.
a comic continuation of the Acolyte, I think, would be great because it would continue the
Mm.
visual excellence of
I
the
agree.
story, which again
You
we're going
get
to talk about
Phil
the fun
Noto
part.
on that? You get
Oh
Phil
my
Noto on that?
god.
Oh my god.
You get Phil Noto, you get, some of the artists from the High Republic also I think would be great.
Ario would be
Yeah.
fantastic.
Hario would be amazing. And like I think comics would be very fertile ground to continue some of the stories from the
So,
Acolyte or to build on those stories
as
if you wanted
of
to continue in other ways.
I agree. So there's a source that does polling and stuff for consumed, searched, and shared content, called Parrot Analytics. As of May 16th through May 22nd of this year, The Acolyte still holding at number 2 on Disney Plus.
Mhm.
That's crazy.
That is wild.
During that week, it was Daredevil Born Again at number 1, The Acolyte at number 2, Skeleton Crew at 3, Win or Lose, which is the Pixar
Yep.
animated series, and then Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man at number 5.
Yeah.
Um,
I
it's a shame.
Mhm.
yeah. I think Skeleton Crew is going to end up kind of in a similar place where it does accrue more people who
I
watch it
agree.
over time. Because I think Acolyte, I think Skeleton Crew, I think both of those are really good examples of like you kind of didn't need to be there while it was airing to get the to fall in love with it. I mean, that's true of any Star Wars, but I feel like Andor felt like such a moment, and Mandalorian, especially season 1, felt like such a moment.
It became an event thing. It became event television. Like I mean, especially Andor, because Rogue One, so many people love Rogue One, and for obvious reasons and for legitimate reasons.
Andor, Rogue One,
Yeah,
phenomenal. We are
absolutely.
never going to speak.
Oh no!
I mean, like,
no.
while I do have criticisms of
Absolutely.
both, I have criticisms of Empire Strikes Back. I have criticisms of A New Hope.
Right.
And it's like
I have criticisms of my favorite Star Wars movie, Return of the Jedi. Like,
yes, and it's my favorite too, Leah. It is my favorite too.
Nothing will ever beat I Am a Jedi like my father before me.
Absolutely.
For me. But you know,
I feel
two Death Stars and they couldn't install guardrails in the firing chamber. You know,
no, I think that's
no.
funny.
There was a guardrail. There was a guardrail, but he was thrown over the guardrail.
Yes, I want my throne room to have direct access to the reactor. Won't that cause radiation poisoning, Emperor? Look me in the eyes and tell me that I need to worry about radiation poisoning.
I've been around for too long.
That needs to be a Robot Chicken episode.
Yeah,
I've already given myself super force cancer by blasting myself with lightning for it.
That was deflected from a lightsaber.
Do you know how much radiation comes out of a kyber crystal?
Real quick though, I love that because I'm looking at Threads, I'm looking at Blue Sky, and Threads definitely has the Acolyte community is like really starting to show on Threads, which I think is really cool. Because of Andor generating as much buzz as it did, a lot of people are like, oh, well, now I want to go and watch all of these other Star Wars projects, not just the movies, but other TV shows.
Yeah.
And us Acolyte fans are like, come on in, like sit down and watch this. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
And I'm seeing the same on Tumblr. I'm seeing people being like, and with Skeleton Crew too, and also Skeleton Crew pushed people more to the Acolyte as well, where they were like, hey, is there more Star Wars where it's not the Skywalkers, where it's not so tied into everything else? And it's like, yes, here we have these 3 excellent shows that you can mix and match what you want to watch. There's lighthearted at one end, there's brutal depictions of war crimes on the other end, and in the
you're
middle,
talking about Rebels, right?
and you know, like Star Wars has something for everyone.
It does.
And people will always find the things that they like. People watch the holiday special every year.
They do.
And
it's not good.
And it's not good, but it is part of this beautiful, chaotic tapestry of this story.
I mean, you and I have watched the Ewoks movies.
Right, the Ewoks. I grew up watching the Ewoks movies. Me too. I grew up watching the Droids cartoon. There is something to love in every piece of Star Wars. And I think that that is part of why each of these pieces should be allowed to thrive and grow if that's, what they what the creators want for them.
I still hope to use it Vong eventually, personally.
The Yuuzhan Vong?
Yeah.
You know what?
Got them.
There's a lot of hate for the Yuuzhan Vong. I always thought they were really freaking cool.
I'm there with you. I thought they were awesome. Do
I think that if they ever get brought into canon that they're going to be as big of a threat? Probably not.
I
Um,
feel like
but I think they would be fun to have around a little bit.
well,
Mhm.
they were originally going to be in Clone Wars. Like Filoni even
They
said, like they were
really?
going to bring them into Clone Wars, um, like as a tease. We kind of got them in canon. We kind of have them in
Really?
canon with the Grisk from the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy because they are kind of Vong-esque, but not really.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
where the Vong where they actually like compared to the Vong see themselves as like a religious movement, and the
Right.
Grisk see themselves as a religious movement for enlightenment and all of these other things.
Mhm.
Um, so I would love to see the Vong if they do it right. I have read a few New Jedi Order novels recently, and honestly, I'm gonna be in the minority here. I think they're overhyped. I think the Vong are overhyped. I really do.
Mm.
Um, and and I'm gonna catch a lot of flack probably for saying that, but
I mean, that's fair.
It,
I just
it's
the thing that one of the things that makes me think we might get more of that. We might get the Vong or something, adjacent to them at some point. Is again, they are bringing and kind of often polishing things from the EU into
Mhm,
the new canon.
mhm,
The new Alex Segura run
yeah,
is bringing in the Nagai,
mhm,
the extra galactic species in, and I'm curious to see what is going to be done with them.
mhm.
mhm. Yeah.
I also feel like with God, what was I just gonna say?
I
Oh,
feel that.
going to going to bringing stuff from Legends. You're starting to see it a little bit with Mara Jade because we did get the Mara Jade lightsaber hilt release at Galaxy's Edge.
Did we
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, and
Um,
they've
Oh.
said she's a legend. Like they even say at Doc Ondars, they're like, "Yeah, she's a legend." But I
Mm.
have a feeling they're probably going to push for her to come in.
I can see
Oh,
them
that
bringing
would
her
be
in
so cool.
some sense. Like, will it be exactly the same as in the EU? Probably not.
No,
Mm.
But I can see like because that is a story that I think is
you could
something that Star Wars should tell.
you could
Mhm.
kind of bring her into the Ray movie.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I would have no problem with shifting around the timeline for her
Mhm,
because her story of being um a weapon is
mhm.
something that Star Wars loves to tell.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I can see that fitting in a bunch of different places.
So,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, no, I,
So,
I think I think and I think again, tying it back to the topic, like the Acolyte is an excellent example of like if given this kind of playground to play in, if given room to tell a story, a lot of these writers love the EU or love parts of it and
they
want
do.
to bring it in and want to zhuzh it up and want to,
There are a lot of EU writers that want to come back.
yeah. John Jackson Miller
Yeah.
did incredible with the Living Force, and that
And A New
so
Dawn.
heavily pulled on
I mean,
EU sources and
and who
EU
better to
ideas
bring Thrawn into canon than Timothy Zahn as
than
well?
Timothy Zahn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of EU writers out there that definitely want to come back. They want to write canon stories. And I think that we should be talking about this on social media, especially talking about these things because they do listen. They
yeah.
they
Mhm.
do listen.
And I mean, I'm sure that they're seeing it.
Yeah.
Obviously, people have loved the
I'll talk
EU
to
for a long
Mike.
time, but
I'll talk to Mike Sinclair.
I think we're seeing, or at least I'm seeing, a lot of fans who have been primarily, who got into the fandom because of the High Republic or something.
Yeah.
A lot of them are like, there's more of this energy, like discovering that there's more of that energy in the EU, or they're discovering that there's other things that they like in the EU. And it's like, and a lot of the things in the EU that they like are things that have not been explored in canon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanna ducktail to the EU real quick, and then we're gonna talk about the cool stuff that we loved in the Acolyte. I feel like you could continue the Legends line even now with brand new stories set in Legends.
Yeah.
I feel that you could do it.
I think Visions was like could almost be seen as like a test run for that, where it's
I
like,
agree.
how do Star Wars
Ninth
fans
Jedi.
feel about stories that aren't directly canon? And it's like
Yeah.
really good.
I mean, Ninth Jedi is the perfect example of that.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Ninth
So
Jedi, Ronin.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I would love to see Lucasfilm Publishing be like, you know what? Why don't we do some more legend stories, some new legend stories? Because let's have both. Let's continue the Legends timeline while continuing canon, and
Yeah.
publish those legend stories under Legends. Like keep it under the Legends banner.
Out
That way
of
you're not confusing people.
out of curiosity, what do you think they would do? Because from what I understand, it's like, yeah, sure, Legends continuity is a mess, but it's pretty dang fleshed out, isn't it?
So
I mean,
well,
so
there it is, but it isn't.
yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, because like I think the chief example is like the High Republic era was an era that never got touched really in the EU.
No, it wasn't.
Like
No.
obviously like some characters were born, some characters died in that time, whatever. But like it wasn't a very fertile period for storytelling like it is now.
Yeah.
And I think that that's true of like the Old Republic was thousands of years before the other stories.
I
There
mean,
are huge gaps in these stories.
you could do novels about the Stark hyperspace wars. You could do all of that stuff.
Or the Rakatan Infinite Empire.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. It doesn't have to be about Bane or Revan or all of these other already established
Right.
EU characters.
Mm-hmm.
Bring in, or you could bring in XR Kun for some more adventures and stuff like
Right.
that. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to flesh out the Old Republic more, there's what 25,000 years of history that you can flesh out.
Or you could even go back to the Eternity Gates.
That you
Yeah.
can flesh out more of
Like
the Dawn of the Jedi era.
and on the other end, like there's the gap between like the Fate of the Jedi era and the
And
Crate
Legacy.
One
Ooh,
Sith era.
the
Yeah.
initial schism between the Jedi and the Force healers.
Yeah,
That would
that,
be cool.
and
Because then you're getting like the backpack lightsabers and stuff. You know.
well,
Right.
that, and then you can do the rise of the Imperial Remnant that leads to Legacy. Like you can do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And like to tag on the Force healers thing, like we just got a Force healer in Andor. People are going to want stories
Mhm.
with, that kind of vibe in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this. I'll talk to Mike. I'll talk to Mike. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
you talk to Mike,
Cavan
I'll talk
first.
to Tom, and
Yeah. We can talk to Cavan and Charles and a few other people. But let's talk about some cool stuff from the Acolyte, because I want to keep this love fest going for this show.
Yeah.
Should we just talk about the big thing, the bleeding of the crystal?
that was like we have every crystal bleeding scene that we've had has been different and has been awesome.
Yeah. We've
We
only
had
had
it in
2, right?
we had
Oh no, we
we
had
had
an
Kylo Ren, we had Vader, we had
That's right. He did.
Dagon Gera,
Oh, that was so good.
and now we've had Osha.
Mhm.
And I think it makes sense that it would never be the same for two people, because everyone's pain that they're pouring into their crystal is going to be different.
Yeah.
Osha, like Vader and Kylo Ren their pain is aggressive and explosive and violent, and that is why it is so violent and destructive when they bleed their crystals. Dagon Gera's is about how he doesn't trust anyone and he wants to push everyone away, which is why there's that shockwave when he does it. And Osha's is simmering and quiet and has been slowly eating her from the inside.
Because of all the losses that she suffered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I like even giving into the dark side, she's not aggressive. She's just
she's very methodical about it.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that makes then a lot of like it is an emotional moment. And that's why people getting into the weeds about like this isn't how it looked when Dagon Gera did it. This isn't how it looked when Vader did it. Is like
it depends on the person.
You're missing the forest for the trees.
Yep.
Like each of these is a single view of a deeply personal and deeply painful moment for each of these characters.
I mean, I love that you talk about Dagon Gera with the betrayal, but also like with everyone he knows and loves is dead at this point too.
He does it, yeah. He feels alone, so his pain makes manifest him being alone.
Yeah.
Osha feels like she is discovering a dark truth to the Jedi, or to the Jedi who she's known. So the lightsaber of the Jedi who took her in is itself being corrupted, is revealed slowly to be corrupted. And like I think it's a beautiful piece of visual storytelling with that.
Because I also feel like the kyber crystal in Soul's lightsaber is influenced by the conflict in Soul's soul, essentially, from the cover-up. And that affects it even more.
Yeah.
And Li Xiangjie did such a good job portraying that conflict in Soul. Like
he's incredible. Dude learned English for this role.
That's crazy.
And he's incredible.
Yep.
In it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, he like, yeah. The kyber bleeding was so,
and even
like my jaw dropped.
When she does it, you see it struggle like between the blue and the red for the
and
longest
you see
time.
she's even like, what the hell is happening?
And then you can tell like she's about to end Chimere, and Chimere would have accepted it right then and there. He would have been okay with it, I think. But because of all that conflict, because of everything, and like you said, with Chimere giving that branch to her, it really that just cements that bleeding even more. And oh my god, it's such a great scene. It's such a great scene. I want to talk about something that we saw very briefly, but it was awesome seeing it in live action, and that is the light whip. I freaking love Vernestra Rose light whip. It was so awesome to see.
Anyone who was complaining about it is outing themselves as a fake Legends fan.
Yup.
And even just a fake Clone Wars fan, because we got him in Clone Wars too.
Right. And like I think all of the lightsaber work in this show was so incredible. The work that they did to come up with Chimere's like two blades this way.
That was so awesome.
I mean, the choreography.
Yeah.
And
Episode 5.
I think this reminds me of some of the most interesting things in the High Republic, which is, especially with Ario, he brought in a lot of his culture's history for like lightsaber designs and combat styles, and I think that is one of the like the Jedi you know, as much as they were originally conceived by George Lucas's idea of Japanese Buddhism, they have always been kind of this mishmash of this very interesting tapestry of different real world warrior cultures and you know, military styles like brought together.
He's
The
from
High Republic,
Indonesia.
yes. The High Republic, you know, brings in a lot of like you know, European knight stylings and a lot of
They
like
said it was
Rupert
more
Natani's
Arthurian legend.
whole the way that she wields her two lightsabers is a like North Indian fighting style.
Yeah.
The you know, Solandra Show with a sword and shield, like
That's very
they
Arthurian.
they have drawn on so many different styles and things, and I think that them leaning into like the things that Manny wanted to bring into it for the Stranger is really cool.
I also love that we saw all those different lightsaber colors as well, because like
Yes.
as High Republic fans, it's so cool to see yellow and purple and blue and green. I wanted white. Like I wanted to see a white lightsaber. I wanted to see it so bad, but I'm so
I
happy.
feel like it would have been in season 2. I feel like there would have been a big moment where a character ignites their lightsaber and it's bright white.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
Anyway.
But yeah. But I love seeing that because that just shows the love that these people have for the source material, and it just shows the creativity. Even if everybody in that fight is essentially cannon fodder.
And like, and look, we can't knock cannon fodder in Star Wars because there's always been cannon fodder in Star Wars.
Look at Hoth.
Yeah.
You know, look at Hoth. Look at the trench run.
Yeah,
look at,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Endor.
Yeah.
The
Or
Battle
Biggs.
of Crate. Yeah.
Look at Geonosis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Which Rise of the Red Blade talks about that.
do you ever think about how how the fight with Chimere is probably the most Jedi to die at one time between then and Geonosis?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
That's wild.
If we're not looking at EU, if we're looking at canon, yes. If we're looking at EU, I would also say the thought bomb from Darth Bane. But yeah, Darth Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. Yeah.
I still like Darth Smilus personally.
Darth Smilus, yes.
Yeah.
But that fight is absolutely brutal too. Like dude is headbutting lightsabers with a Cortosis helmet.
And that is something like I think the Acolyte hit a perfect balance of the different styles of lightsaber fighting that we've seen. Yes. It has the very flashy movements of the prequels, but it also has the raw physicality that you see in the sequels. Yes. And it has the like your you know classic Japanese film inspired like duels between masters like you see in the original trilogy. Like it really hit all of these, like it took these good parts of all of these different things, and it was like the prequel fights, as much as they're fun, are silly to watch sometimes.
They are.
Especially if you come from a background where you understand sword fighting.
Yeah. Especially with them like walking to like different destinations like as they're fighting. Like, why wouldn't you be in just the same place, just sword fighting?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Where like in the fight with the Stranger, when they change locations, it is because someone had to retreat. It is because someone was like, I can't fight right here. I'm ducking.
Yeah. Whereas in the prequels,
prequels,
it's completely different.
Right. And I like the physicality of the fights is like I think this is one of those places where it really worked the way that they have the heavier like sabers now, the heavier
Yes.
like actual prop sabers, because they used it in a way that, I mean, like a proper weapon, like a weapon is not going, like a sword, well, a sword is not as heavy as a lot of people think it is. It's not light.
Yeah.
It has weight to it. It
Right.
has heft. But this, they really choreographed it well. So the heft felt natural. It didn't feel like a hindrance to the choreography. It felt like a part of it.
I also love that during that fight in episode 5, like they're picking up fallen Jedi lightsabers and like trying to fight him with
Right.
those fallen sabers too.
And that's something that we have seen before. We saw that at Geonosis. We see that in the High Republic.
Mhm.
You know, from a certain point of view, that's all that we see in the original and sequel trilogy.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah.
Nice.
From a certain point of view.
I almost made a Matt pun when you were talking about saber weights, because I was like, oh, you're not saying that it's a lightsaber.
That pun
You
had
can
weight.
you can cancel me at any time, Leah. for that.
No, that's funny. But like, and I think, you know, I think it's very clear from how these different fights in these different eras have been choreographed, like what they were using as the prop.
Mhm.
And I think they've hit a point where they found a balance that works really well for these kind of, both very theatrical.
Yeah.
I'm not going to deny that the Soul and Chimera fight was really, really theatrical and played up.
Oh, it's over the
But it
top.
was played up in a way that, one, you can really see the influences, not from just Star Wars, but from like the
It's
whole global storytelling.
it's very Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon-esque.
Yeah, and that's intentional.
Yeah,
Um,
and I love
they
that.
yeah. But it's also like you feel the weight of their blades as they come down on each other.
Mhm.
You see in the fight in episode 5, when the Jedi's blades like dissipate, you see the follow through from the weight of it and their confusion as they're left like suddenly off balance by this. They played up the weight really well. And they played up the just, like you said, he's headbutting these blades out of the air. He's knocking it out of the air with his arm.
Yeah.
Um, when Yord picks up the helmet and uses it in the same way, like they are. It's so fascinating and it's so cool.
I also want to say, like, with that fight in episode 5, like during that follow through and everything, like when they get shocked that like their blades are out, that just sells how overconfident those Jedi are at dueling.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like in that moment.
Dueling for these Jedi has always been an exercise, a ritual
Way for them to
practice.
meditate.
It also
yeah.
sets up Dooku's interest in learning how to actually learn how to model his saber style around defeating other Force users.
Yeah.
And it's like the only Jedi in the show who I can think of who we know has really been in a lightsaber duel before is Vernestra.
Yeah.
And she's the only one who makes Chimera, who makes the stranger go, oh shit, I've got a dip.
Yep.
Mom's coming home.
She's the only, she's the only one who has not only been in a lightsaber duel, but has won a lightsaber duel.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I'm not even talking about whatever happened with her and Chimera. The first book that we see Vernestra in, she wipes the floor with Emery.
She really does. Like they have like this training thing, and like Emery's just like, yeah, okay, you destroyed me.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm talking about when he gives in to his attachment to his former master at
That's
the end
right.
of the
That's
book.
right. That's right. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's right,
Um,
because he goes rogue and she has to stop him. Yeah.
Bernestra has a bad track record of her apprentices falling,
He
doesn't
goes
she?
he goes rogue and she's like, "Oh shit, I got to do this." Like
Again, Chimera does whatever happened with him, and she goes, "Oh, not again! I thought I did. I thought I got over
Emery,
this 100 years ago."
Emery.
well, guys, the anesthesia is still not fully out of my system yet, so I am going to go ahead and scoot.
we're
But
we're about done. So
we're about done.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. All right, everybody. Well, I hope that you all enjoyed our talk about the Acolyte. It's been 1 year. I wish we were getting hot Acolyte summer again this year, like we did last year. But we still have season 1. We still have Wayseeker that just came out not too long ago, and then we get the Jecky and Yord novel written by Tessa Gratton coming out very, very soon. I believe that's next month too.
Yes.
So
I'm excited for that one.
yeah,
It's
and
gonna
then
be
we
fun.
just got the visual guide as well.
Yes.
So the
And we're
Acolyte is
getting a
still
lot
here.
more Kelnaka in the High Republic
Yeah,
right here at the
exactly.
end.
So and keep pushing. Keep, you want to see this come back, keep viewing it. Keep those numbers going, because and keep saying stuff, because I really feel like they will listen and bring this back, because this truly is a unique show. So that's it for us this week. No show next week, as I'm going to be out of town, but we'll pick things up the week after. So that's it for us. May the force be with you. And remember, at the end of the day, we're all the Republic. Goodbye.